You are listening to the Business Bootcamp Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about when Mike realized that his business was doomed. A roadmap for you to navigate going from $200,000 in monthly revenue to $500,000 in monthly revenue. And a little bit of the behind the scenes on the life of an entrepreneur and the takeaways from hearing both sides of the story. But as always, you can check out the full video versions over under Mike Andes on YouTube. Let's get into it in here why Mike learned the hard way that a business can't run on the personality of its owner alone. Here we go.
So at the time, my lawn care business was making about $700,000 in annual revenue. I was really busy. I would do all the estimates throughout the day. I'd get all the crews started at the jobs in the morning. I had an office person I had recently hired full time, and that's the morning of August the 4th, 2016, when I was underneath the dump truck of one of the crews. I was showing them a job. I was going to dump the material, and then I was head back to the shop and get my day started doing estimates. And I went underneath, and my hoodie got caught in the PTO because I went underneath the dump truck to try to manually turn off the PTO because the lever inside of the cab had been broken. Went underneath, caught my hoodie, and immediately sucked me up into the PTO and bunched all my shirt, my hoodie, everything around my neck. Thank the Lord, it all ripped apart, dropped me out of the PTO. I went to the hospital that day. They checked me out, went through x-rays and all the rest of it. And a few weeks later, I was able to get right back into the business after all the skin healed and bruises and wounds and cuts and all that good stuff. So thankfully there wasn't a concussion. I didn't break my neck that they thought I had. And so I'm very thankful. However, what it proved to me that day is that a business cannot be ran on the personality of the owner. It has to be run on systems and procedures and actual legitimate, hard, concrete ways of doing things, and not just the personality of the owner, which might be amazing. And honestly, I believe that you can build $1 million business on the back of a great personality, someone that can sell really well, someone that can even lead other people really well. Those are great skills to have. And we should all strive to improve our sales ability, improve our ability to lead other people. But ultimately, what I learned that day as I was in the hospital, literally FaceTiming my crew to finish the job and get them started on the next one, I realized that my business didn't really have the best of systems. And it ran on my personality of juggling all the balls and working really hard. And I was very fortunate at the time to have some incredible people working for me, as well as Liz in the office that was able to hold all of that together. But I asked myself, is this business really sustainable without people like myself working all day long, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, and really being really skilled at certain things, skilled at landscaping, skilled at lawn care, skilled at selling, really good at persuading and leading or hiring, whatever skills you're good at. It's not to take away from the fact that you're good at them. That's fantastic. But your greatest strength can become your Achilles heel, as it's the same thing as in the body. Like when it comes to muscles, if you compensate too much in doing one side of your muscle too much, the other side can start to atrophy, and it can actually start to break down because you're overcompensating in a different area. And so you might be really strong. The muscle might be really big in sales or in hiring or in leadership or in finance or whatever it is. And because it's so strong, you begin to lean on it even more. You start to, if you have a really strong bicep but no tricep, what you start to do is you start to always ask yourself, how do I pick everything up using my bicep? And what that causes, the tricep begins to fail and fail and fail. And what I find so often in businesses, we as the business owners, the entrepreneurs, the type A, the founders, are so good at what we do, and we juggle all different things in the business, and we're so good at multitasking, and we're actually really good at our jobs. But because of that, as the business, the organism begin to grow, it's constantly using you. And you're constantly asking how you can do everything in the business, how you can run everything, how you can become more efficient, how you can learn more. At the end of the day, if that bicep ever severs, if it ever breaks down, the arm, the body is in great peril because the other muscles of the body have been broken down. There's no other muscle to compensate for the repair that is required from that bicep. And so here I am lying down in a hospital bed. Literally, my bicep was tore open, and I'm there knowing that the jobs aren't going to be sold today, that things are going to fall through the cracks. And I was very fortunate to have great people, but what happens in your business when the things that you are so good at and that Everything in the business hinges on your ability to do them. What happens when you can't do them? What happens when your personality that has filled in the gaps and juggled all the balls in the business is no longer there? And you say, well, no, that's not going to happen. I'm committed to this business. I'm not going anywhere. But what happens when you do literally like I did, got hit by a bus? Like what happens? What happens when you have a family emergency? What happens when you have a relationship that breaks apart? And now the business is vulnerable to literally falling apart because you've built it all on personality and you holding all the balls up and juggling them and working crazy hours. And there's no fundamental system that allows work to come in and be done in an efficient manner at a profitable rate without you being involved somehow. That is really the essence of what a system is. Something that allows the business to operate, bringing business in, producing it efficiently, and creating a profit on the other end without a person, a specific person, typically the owner, being involved. Now, I know I'm talking to people that have larger businesses, multiple employees. You're not thinking about this when you're just getting started. You need to be focused on honing your sales ability, selling more jobs, getting more work, and you having a strong personality around sales is the thing that will get you past $500,000, might even get you past $1 million. Your ability to hire and find people, again, great asset that might get you to multiple millions in revenue. But what's going to ultimately allow you to lead a life that most entrepreneurs aspire to, which is the business runs by itself and you work on it and you tweak and refine, but not an organism or a machine part inside of that machine. You're not a functional piece that's moving and has to be there all the time. If that's your aspiration, you must realize that systems and procedures must run the business. It cannot be you. And I find so often we do one of two things as business owners. Either A, we have the aspiration of having that lifestyle and we jump to it way too soon. We have people that do $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in revenue, even $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 in revenue, trying to find a general manager and having everything in the business outsourced. And all of a sudden they have so much overhead because they got 2 people in the office, they have an estimator, they have project managers, they have someone for sales, they have someone for marketing, they have all this overhead and they don't become profitable. That's not a very good system either, because it might get work, it might produce it efficiently, but if it's not producing a profit because there's so much overhead, then that's not going to be a long-term solution. So to create a system around getting you out of the business, you can't do it too prematurely. That's the first thing. People do this too prematurely. And the other half of entrepreneurs stick around in the business too long and allow themselves to hold all the hats and juggle all the balls for everybody in the business. And if anything would happen to them in their family, in their health, in their personal life, it would literally wipe the business out. And I truly believe that there's a balance. There's a balance to be able to get something off the ground, and that thrust and the power and the energy that's required to get a rocket off the ground, the massive amounts of energy that is required. And that's usually going to fall on you as the founder. That is the risk that you take. That's the crazy hours that you put in the first few years of business. But after 3, 5, 6, 10 years of being in business, you should not be the one that is the driving force behind every single sale, every single job, every single happy customer should not know your name. It should run on a system. You should have a system for bringing in sales, a system for getting the estimate out, a system for performing the work and making sure you don't show up to jobs like I did for every single project. So what did we do? We started to focus on systems. What did I do after August 4th, 2016, once I came back from actually fixing all my scars and issues and wounds that I had? What did I do? I realized that, hey, this is not sustainable. I can't show up to every single project. I need to take a video when we started project management videos, where a video would be taken and given to the crew instead of me being there as the estimator showing them the job. It allowed me to be out of the machine. The machine of daily operations that I was so governed to would not have allowed me to scale the business. It would not have allowed me to continue growing because I was so locked into getting things done, getting estimates done, getting the jobs done. And that's fine. But there comes a point where you do have to step out of that and realize that focusing on building the systems is your job. Refining the systems is your job. And it doesn't mean that you work less or you do a 4-hour work week or anything crazy like that. You spend all that time and energy instead of working in the business, getting things done. You now step back and spend that time, that energy, and that mental capability is now allocated towards working on the systems and procedures that allow that to function, that business to function without your involvement. That might mean training people. That might mean developing their skills. That might be having a software system. That might be outsourcing something to somebody else. But there's this perfect balance between doing this way too soon and way too quickly, and then also holding on way too long to things in the business, and therefore becoming the weakest link in the business because you're basically holding everything up. So there's really no point in this video other than the fact that all of us are somewhere in that range. And you've got to determine that there's going to be times where you've got to index towards you being in the business, and that's fine. When there's problems, you might actually need to jump in, get your hands dirty, and get things done. But realize that the ultimate goal is to get on the other side of the equation where you're working on the systems and how the machine works instead of making the machine works.
Hopefully after hearing that, you guys can index where you are on that spectrum and develop systems around making your business run without you. But before we jump into navigating between $200,000 and $500,000 in monthly revenue, I want to let you guys know about p4psoftware.com. It's one of those systems that can help you stop micromanaging your crew and actually help boost efficiency overall. And you can even head over to p4psoftware.com/training to get a sneak peek at the software. Well, let's jump back into it and hear about navigating through the wilderness of small business. Here we go.
Hey everyone, it's Mike Andes, and today I'm going to be sharing with you why the most treacherous part of growing your small business is typically when your revenues are somewhere between $200,000 in annual revenue and $500,000 in annual revenue. So if you're growing your business and you look over the course of 10 years, maybe the business grows substantially and maybe looks something like this in terms of your growth. And if we look at it as a form of revenue here on the right-hand side, growing up to $1 million in revenue, there's this period of time right between here where you're going to be going between $200,000 and $500,000 in annual revenue. Now, the reason I call this the wilderness of small business is because you're not going to make any more profit here at this stage, right here. If I make a dot here at 200,000, I'm not going to make any more profit here than I will right here. And the reason for that I'm going to explain today, and I'll explain what you should be doing if you're inside of the wilderness or if you're coming up to the wilderness. All right. So let me first explain why a business that does $200,000 in annual revenue typically doesn't make a whole lot more in profit than a business that does $500,000 in revenue. Let's first look at kind of what the typical 250-ish thousand in annual revenue business is going to look like. Typically, it's going to look like you, the founder, the owner, and then you're usually going to get one sidekick employee. This person might be a part-timer and potentially might even be cash on the table to get started. Now, you're also probably going to have like one truck, and this is like the worst truck drawing ever, one vehicle to go do your services, whether it be pool cleaning, whether it be fence building, whether it be lawn care, landscaping, one truck, 2 employees, and you're ultra efficient. You don't have to have office staff. You don't need to have buildings. You don't need to have offices. You don't need a lot of equipment. You can usually store all of this at your own house. So if I look at the truck, your house is literally keeping that truck inside. You don't need to go get shop space. You don't need to go rent a storage facility. But now let's look at the same business that instead of doing $200,000 in annual revenue is doing $500,000 in annual revenue. That same business now is probably going to have you, the founder, but now you're going to have probably 4 employees, and now you're probably going to need like 3 or 4 trucks. All right, so let's do 3 trucks here. Okay, well, if you have 3 trucks, no longer can you have this just sitting at your garage. You're going to need to go to a shop. And in order to keep those 4 employees busy, you're probably also going to need a whole bunch of other infrastructure and back-end overhead. You might need a website, you might need an office person, and now your overhead is starting to really eat into your profits. So let's look real quickly comparing a $200,000 annual revenue business versus a $500,000 in annual revenue business in terms of what their expenses might look like. So if we look at $200,000 on the left-hand side here, we look at $500,000 on the right-hand side. Let's go through this real quick. Obviously, this is our revenues, but let's first take out our owner's salary. Let's assume $50,000 for owner's salary, all right? But over here on the left-hand side, when we had 1 employee, we paid him part-time, a little bit on the side, a little bit of maybe cash. Let's just say that we had to pay them $40,000. But now if we have 4 employees, that number is going to jump up to $160,000. over on the right-hand side when we have $500,000 in annual revenue. But on the right-hand side, we're also going to need an office person. We're going to pay them $50,000 a year to answer the phone, answer emails, send out quotes, all the rest of it. On the left-hand side, we don't need to do that. We're doing that ourselves in the truck throughout the day, getting things done. Now, on the left-hand side, we did have one truck. So let's just say the expense of that truck is $15,000. We bought the truck for $15,000, but to kind of insure it, fuel, all the rest of it, let's just say $5,000 for the year. Whereas on the right-hand side, now we're going to need three trucks, and that's going to be looking more like $15,000. But now we need equipment, mowers, any sort of equipment you're using on your landscape route, dump trailers, all the rest of it. We've got to take that in consideration, and that's going to be at least another $20,000 per year just to keep all that stuff. Now, on the right-hand side, we also got to assume that we're going to have office space. And so instead of using our garage, we've got to get a storage facility. And if that's $500 a month, now we're looking at like $6,000, $7,000 a year. So when you start adding all of this up, what starts to happen is the fact that although you might make $500,000 in annual revenue, you might not make any more profit than you did at $200,000, simply because at $200,000, it can be you with one other person. You're ultra efficient. There's no wasted time. There's no overhead cost. It's just ultra efficient. You as the boss are also performing work. Therefore, you are a revenue producing employee. Whereas at $500,000 annual revenue, the owner, you're really just focusing on selling. You are not actually producing revenue. You're out of the field and you are working on the business and you are doing sales, but that makes you overhead. You are no longer generating revenue for the business. And by the way, you are the most efficient employee. So it means if you're not out in the field working, there's no revenue being produced for you being on the payroll. You are literally an expense to the business. So if we go back to our chart here, between $200,000 and $500,000 in annual revenue is when most small business owners give up. And what they do is maybe not give up in terms of close the business down, but they retreat back to being solo or working by themselves. They get frustrated with employees. They realize that they're not making any more money now than they were a few years ago when it was just by themselves. And they didn't have all the headache of dealing with employees, dealing with all the problems and the complaints that those employees brought. So what happens is they retreat back to being solo. And you see this all the time on social media, and contractors that make videos is they'll get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 employees, and all of a sudden they'll come to a point and they actually retreat back to being solo or maybe working with one employee. The reason for that is because there's no more money being made, there's no more profit being generated at $400,000-$500,000 revenue compared to 200. So the question is, what do you do if you're in the wilderness? You're somewhere between 200 and 500,000 in annual revenue. I really encourage you to speed through that phase. Do whatever you need to grow the business to the point where you're doing above $500,000 in revenue. Or potentially, if you're not yet in the wilderness and you're 150, 200, 220,000 revenue, if you don't have a lot of cash on hand to scale really quickly past 500, maybe take an extra year or two and stack some money aside, because you can be very efficient, very profitable at 150, 200, even 250,000 in revenue. But if you're going to scale up and you're going to move out of your garage, you're going to start hiring employees, you're going to get multiple trucks, which is all necessary to get past 500,000. But if you're going to do that, have the cash reserves, have the money set aside for marketing and hiring and buying more equipment set aside so you can scale through that period of time very, very quickly. Look, you might spend an extra year in that phase of 250,000 revenue, but that's fine because you can be really profitable there. At 250,000 annual revenue, you literally can make 70, 80, 90, even $100,000 in profit in your pocket. So take that time, take that money, put it in your pocket, and get ready for the quick expansion, because remember, growth sucks cash. You're gonna have to buy equipment, hire people, spend in marketing, but that's all going to be done so you can quickly accelerate through this period of time and get to the other side. Because the goal ultimately, if you're trying to grow a small business, is to get onto this other side, get to $1 million in revenue, get to the point where you can offload some of the responsibility, the sales, the marketing, the emails, not having to take phone calls. That is the goal. But to get to that point, don't stay in this period of time too long. This is a very demoralizing period of time when you just don't see the results, the fruit of your labor. You feel like you're working so hard and employees are driving you nuts, and there's really no benefit between 200,000 and 500,000. Now, there's absolutely anomalies to this. There's definitely ranges based upon what services you offer, how much you charge per hour. But time and time again, I see this as the period when most people give up or they retreat, and they give up on their idea of growing a business that can run without them and run on systems with great employees working for them.
Hopefully that helps you create a roadmap of just blasting through that $200,000 to $500,000 mark and helps you align your goals with growing your company. Before we jump into hearing about more of the entrepreneur's journey, I want to let you guys know about lawncaremedia.com. If you guys are looking to grow your customer base without growing your marketing spending, lawncaremedia.com is a great place to pick up professional marketing templates. We're talking flyers, door hangers, yard signs, and so much more. So check that out, lawncaremedia.com. Let's jump back into it and hear a little bit more about both sides of the entrepreneur's journey. Here we go.
When it comes to YouTube and making videos for social media, I've always promised myself that I would be authentic and real and show exactly what's happening in my life and not show just one side of it. Not just because I want people to learn or be educated or see the full story, but also because I feel it's the way to have longevity when it comes to producing content. I feel like a lot of times people burn out or they stop making videos, mostly because they're only showing one part of their life and they're not truly being authentic and showing everything. And if they did, they would feel more relaxed in the fact that they're not having to put on something for the camera versus what is in real life. And so for that reason, I'm making this video today, which just kind of shows the human side of Mike Andes. And so many of you watch these videos only, whether it be on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or whatever it might be. And very easily on social media, it can become an idolization of someone's skill set and their life. So you see myself having multiple businesses in real estate, almost 100 locations at Augusta Lawn Care that are franchised. And it's very easy to say, oh, well, he has it all together. He knows all the answers and he's somehow perfect. And that is by no means the case. And the reason I make this video also is for especially the younger entrepreneurs, whether in lawn care and landscaping or any home improvement service business. My passion and my heart is for small business owners. That's really what it comes down to. Like, I know there's more opportunities in terms of money in software and dealing with B2B companies and larger software companies, but I'm just not interested in that. I really do like to see the impact. I love to see 18, 19, 20-year-old young men really hone their skills and their craft and become something awesome, change their livelihood, change what has been generational poverty in their families, and really work on themselves and just put in the hard work and change their lives. I love to see that. And so I make this video in part also for them to realize that when you're watching people on social media, and most of them do not show the part I'm talking about today. And so I hope that my very, very, very small audience that I reach every day becomes very keenly aware that the people they watch every single day have their own issues, their own struggles, their own problems, and that when they lay their head on the pillow each night, that they're going through their own issues. And so for me, my kryptonite really, and when I really start to struggle, is when I cannot fall asleep and I'm just laying in bed for a long period of time. And typically this never happens. I'm usually very, very tired when I go to bed. Within 1 to 2 minutes, I'm asleep. But occasionally I get worried and I start worrying and it starts compounding. And when you have as many businesses as I have, you employ as many people as I have, and there's so many owners now that I feel responsible for, there is never a lack of things to be worried about, whether it be financial, whether it be people that are going through relationship issues, owners that are having struggles in their business, they're having hiring issues, they're having trouble selling jobs. And literally there's an unending amount of stress and situations that could potentially go wrong at any given point in time, and are going wrong at any given point in time. And so I'll sometimes lay in bed for hours, and it's not fun. It's not something that I enjoy. And I think the part that how I kind of reconcile it, and I get worried, it's hardly ever about myself, honestly. I get very concerned about other business owners, especially our franchisees at Augusta Nation. I get concerned with my performance and making sure I produce for them. I'm affected when other owners are struggling financially because I know what that stress is like, and I know how much pressure that puts on them, and I don't like that. And so when you go into the same thing in your business, when you have customers or employees that are going through struggles, or customers that are leaving bad reviews, 1-star reviews, and they're complaining, when that's happening, you have to step back for 1 second and just realize that the reason you're stressed and the reason you might be lying in bed at night awake is because you care. And this is what I kind of constantly step back to when I'm really, really concerned and getting worried, and my head starts spinning, and I just feel like my heart starts. I'm pretty aware of my body, mostly because when I went to kinesiology and pre-medical sciences, I did a lot of the physical body. So like, I know when my heart rate is going up. I know when my blood pressure is higher. I know all of these things. And so it's almost annoying to know it because you can actually feel like, okay, I'm not gonna be able to sleep because this is what's happening in my body. And right now my cortisol is pumping and this is what, like, it's a little bit annoying. That happens. And for anyone that says it doesn't happen or says that they somehow have never struck out or that they never worry or that they are somehow perfect, it's just an absolute lie. And obviously people that are more optimistic, there are people that are more positive, and I would consider myself one of those. And the way I can reconcile those moments is that the only reason that I'm so worried, the only reason that I am feeling so down and it affects me so much emotionally is because I care. And when you have those negative reviews, when you have customers that are mad at you, when you have employees that are going through a rough time and your brain just is firing on all cylinders when you're trying to go sleep, or you just can't relax, or you start to get sick. Like I've been sick this week. It's been brutal. When that's happening, the only reason I can reconcile is I step back and I realize the only reason I'm so concerned and worried and stressed about them is because I care. And I really, really do want to see them succeed, whether it be the franchisees, whether it be my employees, whether it be people that I know that are struggling with certain things in their family life, in their personal relationships, in their business. And the only reason that you care so much about when a customer's mad at you, when they leave a 1-star review, when they say that you did a bad job, is because you actually care. Because if you didn't care, you just brush them off. Like, who cares about you and your job and you thinking I'm wrong? And that kind of mentality would be someone that can live a very carefree life because they, in their mind, never let someone down. They never did not meet someone's expectations. They always were perfect. And that's a very unhealthy lifestyle to live, in my opinion. It's a very selfish lifestyle to live in that you constantly are living for yourself and thinking that you're right instead of wanting to sacrifice for other people and see them succeed and see them do well. And you don't want to disappoint them. That is a healthy thing as a business owner, to not want to disappoint your employees, to not want to disappoint your customers. It's very healthy. And that's the only way I can reconcile it. But I made this video mostly just to say that if you go through the same thing, if you're stressed, if you're worried, if you're stressed about the financial side of the business, if there's employees that are leaving and saying negative things, or customers that you feel like you're disappointing, and you know you're disappointing, and you can't fulfill the promises that you made to them, and they're complaining, and you know it's your fault. The only reason that's happening is because you're human, and because you're dealing with humans, and humans have emotions, and they have ups and downs, they have bad days, and they have good days, whether it be employees or customers, and it's just part of business. And it's part of the thing that, honestly, I step back and realize that what keeps me up at night is because I care so much. And I'm glad that I do something in my business and in my life that is actually worth staying up for. Some people always like, oh, you should just relax more and take a vacation. And like, I make the decision to work hard. I make the decision to work to the point where sometimes I do get sick. I make that decision consciously. I make the decision consciously to quote unquote give up, which I don't feel is giving up. I make a decision to forego certain pleasures in life or family and friends and relationships because there's something that I want to do. And that is build Augusta Nation. That is to allow others the opportunity that I've had to take lawn care and landscaping and make a career out of that, and make really good money and be able to give back to the community and create jobs. And I'm very passionate about that. And I have made the decision to forego certain things in order to have that. Not for material possessions. I could care less. I'm sitting in like a 1-bedroom apartment right now. I don't care about that stuff. I care more about what I'm doing than the occasional time when I stay up all night and work hard, or I stay up for hours laying in bed worrying and concerned about other owners, other business owners, and other employees, customers, their situations. And honestly, I think it's worth the risk.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you're looking for anything else, Mike Andes, check out our brand new website, mikeandes.com. We'll see you there.